Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Rage, and we are back today to talk about the 10 most powerful teams in the game that's going to give you foundation of value in terms of not only pushing through the mid game to the end game, but ultimately it's going to set you up for success. It's going to get you through 80 to 90% of the content that's in the game until you're at the very end game where we're modifying teams and choosing what to invest in, and obviously refinement for some of those teams that are best providing value. Having said that, guys, as you may know, I do this video typically every month or every couple of months because of the changing meta. So there's very little changes from month to month. Sometimes there's a team that gets slotted in, maybe due to the shift in the meta, but that's why I try to, encompass everything that's happening in the game, but as well what's going to give you the most value and bang for buck rewards standpoint. The two game modes that I highly recommend, and also my priorities, is always going to be raid teams as well as arena teams. Reason being is because right now, from a player standpoint, that's the best of how you're going to get the most optimal resources for roster progression, and as well as obviously power cores from arena, which is one of the most useful resources in the game that can actually pivot to many situations depending on what you're doing in the game. So I want to give you that little bit of pre-context because of the fact that obviously there's going to be a bias here. There's going to be more focus on these raid teams because they're giving us value. Now remember, as you're building up these raid teams and arena teams, they're going to give you other strengths as well in other game modes, such as having a starting beginning roster that you can utilize for both Cosmic Crucible and as well the war setting. Although they are important game modes to consider, they're not as important as the daily raids that you're doing and the daily arenas because of the way that the rewards are compounded. The fact that they can give us a very unique resource in terms of either crimson gear as well as power cores being utilized where you see fit. So I want to open with that because you'll see that there is going to be a focus on raid teams because we're doing it day in, day out. But as a result, like I said, this is going to build a strong foundation. And these 10 teams, I believe, are going to be able to allow the most progression in the game. And again, unlocking 80-90% of the content that you'll need. And that's why we try to do this every month or a couple of months. So first and foremost, every single day we're expected to do raids, and many of these teams also qualify to be very strong in War and Crucible, and actually even the Dark Dimension setting. So let's talk about what we're doing day by day, and then we'll talk about some of the other teams that we're adding and removing here from this list. So first, you see this is the Orcus Tech team, utilized every single day for Chaotic Storm right now. I mean, there's not really any other option. Build them as high as you can because of the fact that many of these key members are also going to be utilized in Age of X. I'm fully planning to bring in at least 3 or 4 of them actually for the global villain section. So that's why there's value right there. You're using them in daily raids. There's a strong potential for them to be used in Age of X, Professor Xavier Unlock, and as well they're very formidable War and Crucible teams, and even in Dark Dimension. So there's not really any options right now, and they are more recent. So the good news is that they're still here to stay for a little while, but we'll talk about some of the other teams that are on the way out. Night Stalkers. This is the go-to team right now for the Mystic section. The reason why my man thing is actually not built up is because of the fact that I'm actually using Odin and Mephisto also on these nodes, but this is the go-to team right now for getting through the Mystic section for the Chaotic Storm raids. Build them up because they'll have ultimate value, and as well very similar to Orcus, Blade and Oath are 2 characters I'm planning to bring up into the city section for Age of X for unlock of Professor Xavier. So again, once again, having value in not just the intended game mode, but other aspects of the game. They're good Dark Dimension characters, and as well even in War. This is where it gets interesting because we know that Thunderbolts just got released. So obviously Hive Mind and Super Scroll used to be the go-to team for the bio section for raids. Well, not anymore, right? We do have Thunderbolts actually slotting in here now as the go-to team. I don't have them listed because I have not built them up. Reason being is because as our alliance is working through this, right now, bio is actually still doable because we're combining into the individual lanes. Now, as we get access to the shards and push these characters into higher levels, Thunderbolts is obviously the go-to option. So if you already have them unlocked, Hive Mind and Skrull should be on the way out. But keep in mind, Skrull is still one of the better characters in the game, being that mythic tag. So you still want him built up. And remember, he's from the Dark Dimension 6 unlock. So definitely be watchful of that. He's still a very strong addition, and he makes other characters and the rest of his team even better. But for sure, Thunderbolts is the go-to here for bio, so make sure you build them up. Then we have Vigilante being for the skill section, without question one of the best teams in the game, not just for the intended raid mode, but if you guys followed my past videos, I built them up all the way for the Fallen Dimension Omega event that got released. We have multiple events that required them, and now they provide value in Battle World and even in some of the legendary unlocks. So build up Vigilante as high as you can. They're really formidable, and 3 out of the 5 members here are actually coming with me onto Age of X for Professor Xavier unlock. So this is definitely a very pivotal step, because as you're progressing in the game, you're already building up some of these teams and characters that are going to be needed early as well as all the way to the very end game, and they're statistically they're really good too. So definitely take your hands, if you have any moment to invest in them, without question fully invest in them. As you can see, Hitmonkey and Silver Sable already being geared tier 20 as I'm preparing here for Age of X. The mutant section here is definitely interesting right now, ladies and gentlemen, because of the fact that we know they're likely going to be the next team out. However, Old Man Logan with the mixture here of the Extreme X-Men is the best form of this mutant team. Now, having said that, even though you know, they're kind of the OG meta for the mutant nodes, you can actually slot in some different character combinations for mutants to get through the hardest difficulty of Chaotic Storm. So I have them listed here so you can see how high I have them built, because previously they had value in Dark Dimension. They were decent in War until obviously the meta crept up. They were okay in Crucible depending on the rooms. Having said that, if you have access to this team or you're building them up, you can actually slot them in with different characters now. So I have left to right Old Man Logan, Nightcrawler, and Forge, because those 3, in my opinion, are the 3 most important. Nightcrawler is a great plug and play character, so definitely focus on him with Old Man Logan. However, if you have access to some of these other characters here, as shown, you know, in this case Alpha Flight, as well as the Uncanny Avengers, Uncanny Avengers and Alpha Flight are also both needed required teams for the Spotlight raids to the maximal level. So that's why if you can slot any of these characters here to make it work in your Chaotic Storm, even better, you can save a bit of resources. For example, when I'm going through the Chaotic Storm, usually my Old Man Logan can solo most of it with Nightcrawler, and then I can plus minus, you know, for instance, Jean Grey, plus maybe Beast and Storm, or maybe Falcon. Those characters can definitely help out in the Chaotic Storm raid. So if you can make it work, you definitely don't need to fully invest in Extreme X-Men, because they're likely going to be the next team out, especially from the rotation from raids. I guess we jumped on a little bit earlier here, but again, both these teams here, Alpha Flight, Uncanny, and Avengers, are both required for the Spotlight raid. So that's why they're necessary here. You need them built up essentially, but you can see you can min-max a few components here, right? Like for example, North Star is the most important character, next with Guardian and Sasquatch, but otherwise you can see even on the bottom there, I have Jean Grey, Falcon, and as well as Hercules being more important. So this at least gives you a sense of which characters to prioritize and that can carry the team, and that's kind of what I've done here, right? Invest when you need to, but you don't need to max them out all the way to the optimal, just because they can still get the job done at the end of the day. So that really covers the raid components, guys. And as I said earlier, if you build up the majority of these teams, this is going to give you a great foundation here for raids, but as well as other game modes. Now let's talk about some of these other teams I have listed here, because there's 3 to 4 teams that are required because they allow access to some of the most powerful characters in the game. So what you'll see here is Out of Time, Cabal, we have Illuminati, and we have Annihilators. The reason they're all here, guys, is because these 4 teams allow us to unlock Shadow King and Old Man Logan. Again, 2 of the most powerful legendary characters in the game. And the reason I wanted to showcase here the full listing of how built they are, because the levels that you see right now, they are able to actually allow you to get through the trials at 7 stars for both the legendary characters. So Black Knight is easily the most important character for Out of Time. So you can see he's built up higher than everybody else because he's going to give you the most value. You don't necessarily need to put that much into Captain America, Carter, Starbrand, as well as Cosmic Ghost Rider, because of the fact that that's all they are. They're going to be a war defense team, and that's it, and they're really meant for the unlock of the legendary. Cabal, on the other hand, is actually a really useful team. They can be used actually for 2 of the legendary unlocks that I mentioned, and as well as Dark Dimension, and being a go-to meta for Cosmic Crucible. So that's why it's important to build them up. As you can see, I wasted no expense there, because they're actually well worth it, and they give you optimal value. Illuminati, I only built up the 3 newest characters, right? Britain, Black Panther, Shuri, as well as Hank Pym, because they can provide value. Otherwise, you don't necessarily need Black Bolt and Mr. Fantastic built up that high, because this is allowing you to be able to unlock the 7-star here for Shadow King. And then Annihilators, my goodness, nothing can be said about how good this team is. If you don't have Odin, Mephisto, Skrull, and so forth, this Annihilator team is going to be your arena team, right? They're going to be able to get you at least higher until you unlock some of those mythic character combinations. Even right now in my current arena meta, I am using Gore as well as Gladiator almost every single day. So they're going to provide value regardless. So that's why I have that's why I had minimal investment there in Silver Surfer as well as Ultimus, because obviously they're going to be slotted out and not really utilized. But you can see, even despite that, this is able to get you this 7-star on Shadow King. And then lastly, guys, those are the 10 teams, but I do have the Astro team here with an asterisk because they're the only Battle World team right now that's applicable. And if you want to at least get through every single attack when Battle World does come back at least once a month, they're the only team. So I do have them with an asterisk here. You don't necessarily need them, but they are a bonus team because, again, they contain Shadow King, one of the most powerful legendaries in the game as well. They're a formidable Crucible and War team, depending on how you want to pivot. But I would definitely focus on these other ones there before, obviously, the Astro team, because of the fact that they're giving you arena value and raid value every single day to help propel your roster to new heights. So hopefully this is helpful, guys. Let me know what you think in comments below. Did I miss anything? Do you agree or disagree with some of the teams? That's what I see right now, being able to provide ultimate value for a lot of the players transitioning to mid game, ultimately into the end game, where you can start refining those bonus teams that get released and you have the option to invest in them. Thank you for your time as always, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.